Okay, folks, it's 30 degrees out there. It's officially too hot to knit. We have finally reached that part of summer where it's too hot to do much of anything. For anyone south of the 49th parallel, this means you probably have an air-conditioned home or office to which you may retreat. Some of you lucky people have a pool. See, unless you have a fairly large disposable income, home AC isn't really economical in my part of the world, mainly because it only reaches the level of postmodern hellscape for about 2 weeks of the year, give or take a few days. The rest of the time, life is fairly temperate. You can comfortably knit blankets and sweaters from about October through March or April, and fill in the rest of the time with socks, shawls, and other small accessories. But what do you do when the weather has finally had enough of humanity's bull roar and literally tries to scourge us from the face of the earth? This is where some of you will refer to your handy-dandy knitting magazine article on summer knits. But I assure you, when your hands are sticky because the humidity has suddenly gone up to 90%, and it cannot or will not rain, that list flies right out the window. I'm not going to suggest you garden. That would be absurd. Yes, I know we all need to spend some time outside and our gardens need love. When it gets this hot, there's no shame in turtling. If you feel the need to retreat to your basement or other cold refuge and you don't feel like watching TV, books are a great option. You can choose an educational book. Maybe this is the time to learn how to draft your own patterns. If you're a sewist, this is a highly useful skill that will help you if you need to alter a commercial pattern or create something entirely new. Maybe crafting stories are more your speed. Elizabeth Zimmerman's Knitter's Almanac is full of projects for almost any time of year. She intersperses her patterns with stories and recollections. Stephanie Pearl McPhee is probably the closest modern analog to EZ. Her books are less pattern-centric and more slice-of-life and story-oriented. If you want fun stories from a crafter's point of view, McPhee delivers. Finally, how about a little fiction? Here I have C.L. Polk's award-winning fantasy novel Witchmark and its follow-up Storm Song. Gorgeous covers. The third book in the series, Soulstar, will be available from Tor.com on February 16th, 2021. If you can't wait that long, her excellent fantasy, The Midnight Bargain, is coming in hardcover and digital from Erewhon Books in October 2020. I've been privileged to read an advance copy, and if you love romance, descriptions of fashion, and themes worthy of Jane Austen, I think you'll enjoy Midnight Bargain. You can order or pre-order any of these books wherever fine books are sold. Probably Amazon, Evil Empire though it may be. Jeff Bezos may not need the money, but the authors could sure use the royalties. If you don't feel like reading a book, how about writing one? Or at least writing in one. Personally, I prefer the program Scrivener for novel writing, but for planning, I like a notebook with nice paper, a fountain pen, some fine liners, and some colored markers for highlighting, underlining, and separating sections. You can make sketches to go along with your notes, or try one of the many templates in the extremely flexible bullet journal system. If you're not feeling particularly creative, there are lots of journaling options available on Etsy. One of my favorites is by DIY Fish. There are templates and printing information available for Filofax, Traveler's Journal, and other planners. And hey, if you need to unwind a bit, there are plenty of adult coloring books. Of course, by adult, I mean Doctor Who and Harry Potter books with more detail than the ones for kids. I don't mean coloring books with, adult content. Though look hard enough and I'm sure you can find it if that's your thing. Alright, moving right along. Now you might not be able to handle holding onto yarn, but how about embroidery floss and a needle? If good old embroidery is not your speed, maybe cross stitches. You can often find kits at your local hobby store, and supplies can easily be ordered online otherwise. These days you can find projects as small as a wee snarky sampler, or something a little larger. My parents found these for birthday and Yule presents back in the 90s and early 2000s when Michaels carried larger kits. They're magicians, wizards, and sorceresses. A couple of the kits came with their own supply of thread included. I stalled out when I ran out of a specific thread called Krennic, and I couldn't find a large enough piece of black Ida cloth. We're living in the future now, so finding these materials shouldn't be too difficult. If I didn't have a list as long as my arm, I might be reaching for one of these kits. You notice I'm not suggesting you start a tapestry or a large-scale hand-sewn garment, because that would entail draping fabric over your lap, and in this kind of heat, that's the last thing you want. I'm not so cruel as to suggest you start any project closely resembling a blanket. How about lace? You've already watched me working on these wee little stars, but that doesn't mean you need to work at this small a scale. Just because I'm a glutton for punishment doesn't mean you have to be. The reason crocheting lace works for me is due to two factors. The thread is very thin, and it doesn't get wrapped around my fingers the way yarn does. As you can see here, I'm either knitting or playing a really elaborate game of solitary cat's cradle. Now, considering the thread is very thin enough I'm calling it thread rather than the catch-all of crochet cotton, it's very light and isn't dragging too much through my fingers. When my hands start getting hot and sticky, I wash them with really cold water, and I can keep going for a while. As always, I suggest a low to no heat magnifying lamp so you don't strain your eyes or overheat your hands. If your workroom is very bright on its own, you might not need to turn the lamp on. You don't have to crochet your lace. If you aren't a full contact knitter like I am, this might be a good time to knit a very lightweight lace shawl. Or you could try your hand at tatting, bobbin lace, or sewn needle lace. There are all sorts of laces you could choose to explore. Of course, bobbin lace and needle lace generally require a pillow to stabilize your work, but that's something you could balance on a table or a desk. Last, but certainly not least, I'm going to suggest machine sewing small projects. You could work on sewing kits, knitting needle or crochet hook cases, project bags, or, suitably enough, face masks. Our city has recently passed a bylaw mandating that masks be worn on public transit, public vehicles for hire like taxis, in public indoor spaces like stores and religious venues, and in city buildings. So now's a good time to proclaim your love for the local hockey team or show your quirky sense of humor by dipping into the fashion cotton. I like Halloween fabric myself. Give me fanciful skulls, blinged out spiderwebs, and skeletons doing the cha-cha. I like a sense of whimsy with my goth, and I figure that if I'm sending the husbeast into the office, I should probably send him with masks he likes. That way he's more likely to come home with them and will fight his coworkers for them if they try to convince him to give them up. Though I've met his coworkers, I'm kinda afraid of what might happen if they mobilize to work together against him. I've seen what those women can do to a cubicle given enough streamers, balloons, and sticky tape. I know the threat they represent. So what are your thoughts on the matter? What's the weather doing in your neck of the woods? Are you sweltering from the heat and incredible humidity, or are you sheltering from the latest tropical storm? Are you hiding in the basement with a fan cranked, desperately watching cost-tube videos until your body temperature returns to normal? Why not leave me a comment down below? I'm going back to my wee little stars. If you haven't already, do click the subscribe button, and if you want to be notified when I release new videos, go ahead and ring the bell. I need to get this done so we can get going on a sewing project. I just finished pre-washing all my fabrics, so this should be fun. Till then!